Savvy Business Radio, home to over 500,000 listeners per month, and runs in syndication on 8 AM/FM stations nationwide, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out in a bigger way, call 732-474-7375 or email Christina at savvybusinessradio.com.
Our first guest today is Erica Peitler, author, speaker, and accomplished leadership performance coach and high-impact facilitator. Today, she shares the key to great leadership. Find out more about Erica and leadership at ericapeitler.com. Hi, Erica. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you today?
I'm great, Christina. Great to be with you and your audience today.
I'm so happy to have you in this wonderful start of 2017. We're getting into the spring here, and you're going to help business owners and people alike learn leadership in a way in which they can enhance their lives, their organizations, their businesses, and really be the best leader they can possibly be. You've created a wonderful book called Leadership Rigor, Breaking Through Performance and Productivity, Leading Yourself, Teams, and Organizations. And this is a great topic because I think sometimes, myself included, I worked in management for many years and thought I was a good leader, and I learned throughout as I grew that there were things I wasn't so great at and I need to get better at. So we're going to get into all that, but before we go there, share with our audience a little bit about how you became a leadership coach and working in that realm.
Sure. So my career, I'm a pharmacist by background, and I had started in the pharmaceutical industry, healthcare industry, spent about 20 years working in a variety of roles, including marketing, sales, R&D, ran a global company division for Bayer Healthcare. And all through the process, I was fascinated by two things. One is I loved how drugs worked and communicating it to people, and I loved figuring out how people worked and trying to help them become the best leaders. So about into my career, maybe 21 years, I decided I wanted to take a break and pursue another avenue. And for me, that passion that I had was leadership. And I decided to open up my own boutique coaching and consulting firm. And I've been for the past almost 10 years now working with about 18 CEOs, probably 20 plus teams and hundreds of executives. And I just love it. Leadership is just a fantastic area to be in.
Wow. You know what's interesting, Erica, is I think it was 5 years ago when I first started my business, I had hired a business coach, and she was phenomenal in growing her business. Over 12 years, had grown into a steady six-figure income and was now reaching into the millions. But at the time, I thought, what can I possibly do to grow my business to make me set apart from other people? And she said to me, so what is it you did in corporate that was making you unique as your best gifts and talents? And at first, I had to really delve and journal and go deeper into it. And for me, it was customer service. That was like what jazzed me up, and what I really loved is figuring out ways to serve the customer in the best possible way for whatever company I worked in. So it's awesome that you, taking your 21 years or plus in working in the companies you worked at, is taking your gifts as leadership. Was that an overnight process for you, that you just, bam, had an overnight aha that this is what I'm good at? How did that come about for you?
No, it certainly was not overnight. And while I loved leadership, I love what you say, which is, you went back into the, reflection process and you said, what really was my corporate gift? And for you, it was customer service. For me, what came out very early on in my career was my gift was communication. For me, communicating, being brave in front of an audience, or being able to synthesize, connect dots, put things together, was a very easy thing. So what I learned about leadership is there's two currencies of leadership. There's communication and relationships, and those are two sets of skills that we have to master over time. For me, communication was that talent and that natural gift, and where I really needed to do work was on the relationship building. So, in my own career, I was, probably a little bit higher in IQ initially than EQ. So, pretty smart, pretty driven, able to get things done. So that communication really benefited me. But the work that I needed to do on the relationship side really started to interest me in how can I take this learning that I've done about relationships, how difficult it is to really come up with and develop and nurture healthy relationships, and bring that into the world in a way that can help other people. And that was sort of the way I wanted to express my leadership coaching, was helping people build those healthy relationships and communicate effectively.
Wow. And I think some people could use help in both areas. Now, EQ would be emotional intelligence. And how does that play a part in being a good leader?
So it is the essential set of tools, I think, for great leadership, because EQ, there are 4 components of it, and probably your audience is pretty familiar with it. But let me just quickly say what it is. 4 areas: self-awareness. Do you know how you're showing up in the world? Do you understand what the impact is that you're having? Self-management. Are you able to appropriately be with emotions and triggers and challenges and find a way to appropriately communicate and navigate those situations you find yourself in? Social awareness. Are you aware of the room, the people that you're with? Do you meet people where they are? Do you notice some of the changes and what's being said and what's not being said, so that you can be flexible in adjusting your communication and the state of the relationships? And the last part is the relationship itself. All of emotional intelligence serves in helping us have these healthy relationships. So today's leaders, what I find fascinating is being the smartest person in the room, no longer, the cool thing in terms of leadership. You want to be the person in the room that has the greatest and highest level of emotional intelligence. And as a leadership coach, what's great about that is all of those skills are learnable. Those are all things we can practice, we can invest time in, and we can increase our competency in.
Now, I'm curious, if something came up when you were speaking. As I've learned and grown as my own leader and such throughout the many years, both in corporate and now in my business, there's times where I thought I have presented myself to my either clients or to the world in a certain way. And then I got feedback that showed me that I wasn't really presenting myself, or the idea I had about myself wasn't really what people saw. How do you get a handle on knowing how people perceive you in the world?
That's a fantastic question. So, one of the models in leadership rigor, one of the things that, you'll notice about the style that I bring to leadership coaching is I really try to help people with language and frameworks. So one of the models that I love to talk about is that our intention and our impact really need to be aligned. So, we prepare for that client meeting. We have that idea in our head. We mentally rehearse that, and we want to make sure that, we're able to put that out there. Our intent is always good. The impact in real time, how it's landing, how we're using our words, how we're using our body language. Sometimes if we're not as equally focused on mentally rehearsing the impact that we want to have and really starting with a vision and a clarity for what that is, we can sometimes get so wrapped up in what we think we want to communicate that we're not thinking about how do we really want this person to feel, experience us, and emotionally walk away with the message that we deliver. So one of the things I like to coach people on is, think about the impact you want to have, that experience you want to create, and then build the message and the intention of your idea and the communication effort of it.
Mm-hmm. And is the component of that coming from a place of making it about the other person and not so much about you? Because I know for me in the past, when I would ask to do a talk or something, I would get so wrapped up in, oh my gosh, I'm going to do a talk. Are they going to like it? That it was more about me. Is that part of it?
Completely. One of the things that I talk about a lot in leadership is, it is about service to others. And, if that's a talk, that's about our audience. If that's a client, it's about their experience. So when we get out of being about being smart and making sure that, we get our idea across, and we shift to how can we best ensure that our idea is received, that's when you're really making an influential impact as a leader. So that shift in perspective is really critical.
And I've heard it mentioned that there's a certain currency of leadership. And what is that, and why is it so critically important?
Yeah, so the currencies, which, we got to sort of mention right at the top of this, is communication and relationships. And why is it important? As leaders, we only get to really work through our intangible skills of relationship building and communication. I mean, that really is what leadership is about. It's really about influencing. And, in communication, why it's a currency, the biggest skill that I think is associated with communication, Christina, is veritas. The ability to speak truth, the ability to often speak truth to power, the ability to say what needs to be said. And that takes a lot of practice, and that takes a lot of confidence and courage. On the relationship side, what we're looking for is gravitas, this, ability to influence, be seen as a wise person in the room, where people not only listen, but they lean in and really listen to what we're trying to say.
This is so fascinating you're going here, because I had a talk about 2 years ago with a wonderful coach who wrote a book called, right, now I've forgotten it, bummer. But anyway, what Life Well Lived. And anyway, what I really loved about it is that whole premise was really about coming from a space where you live truth, live, breathe, eat it, because often, she said, in life, we become so wrapped in presenting to the world a package or picture that we want them to see because we think that's the best picture of ourselves, our version of ourselves in our mind. And then we forget to be real, and we forget to be real about ourselves and life and everything around us. And it leads us all to live a kind of fake life. So when you talk about Veritas, I'm like, that's interesting. But and what I found about your other part about being influenced, how do you tie that together with being and speaking truth in a way that people can really take it, lean in, and not be offended by it? Because at this time, there is a lot of political correctness. How do you put that forth where you're doing it in a way that's sensible and sensitive to your audience, but also living in truth?
That's a terrific question, because it really links together, I think, a couple of powerful thoughts in leadership. And this living your truth and being authentic that we talk about. There's a model that I love to use. It's called the power model. And just imagine 3 concentric circles. So we have a small circle, a medium, and a larger circle. And, power is a big thing in life, whether it's in our individual personal relationships or in an office setting, a business setting. The smallest power that we have is position power. It's usually related to, the role that we have right now over someone. Maybe we're the boss. The second largest power is expertise power. We may be a lawyer, we may be an accountant, so we have requisite skills and power associated with our knowledge. But that large concentric circle is what I call personal power, and that's our ability to influence. And when we're talking about veritas and gravitas, and how to use it with power, what we're really talking about is how do you connect with people? So if you challenge a colleague on their idea or asking them to provide you with more information, you're using the truth of your curiosity and you're using the truth of your confidence to say, I'm not quite yet understanding this, and you're forcing a dialogue. You might use the truth of calling forth a colleague, right? You and I, Christina, may have had a conversation earlier in the week. We find ourselves in a meeting and the issue comes up and you may be a little quiet, and I may say, hey, Christina, we had this conversation earlier in the week. Why don't you share with the group what we were talking about? And that uses my veritas and my gravitas to not only connect with you and the audience, but to help serve in your behalf to get your voice to be presenced in the room. So veritas and gravitas can really be used by leveraging our personal power to connect with other people in service of bringing forth either their truth or what can be really meaningful in the moment as we're having business discussions and dialogues.
And it seems to me you're also bringing forth other people's power to the stage as well, and allowing other people to share in it.
Exactly. You're bringing forth their voice, their power in that room. Absolutely right.
Wow. And this recalls for me, Erica, because I've had some tremendous bosses over the years in corporate and some not so tremendous bosses. And what stands out for me, for leaders of great leaders over my corporate time, were the ones that really allowed each of the coworkers to have a voice and to be heard, and to not say you're insignificant no matter what your status was, and to hear them out. Whether we decided to go that route or not, the point is everyone knew they had a voice, and that allowed other people to come to the table and bring their best. Have you noticed that?
I have not only noticed that, but I really, really love the fact that, the experience that you had was, in these bosses that do what I call creating safe space. We have incredibly talented people that we work with. And if we are able to, whether it's the boss with position power or the boss that's really trying to leverage their personal power, if we look at our talent and we say, our job is to really realize the talent here, to really get people to be at their best. And for people to be at their best, We have to create these safe space environments where people are not afraid to take risks and make changes. One of the things that I love to talk about in business is growth only happens. Personal growth, business growth, profitability, you name it. It only happens as a consequence of our ability to take risks and make changes. And when you think about it, who's going to take risks and make changes unless a boss has appropriately created some of that safe space so people can bring their voices forward and can play full out and bring ideas with the consequence of maybe making a mistake and failing occasionally, but knowing that that'll be okay because we'll translate that into a learning experience. That's a powerful dynamic that we look for our good leaders to create in the environment of work.
That's a fabulous point. I recall one boss, because he saw I was studying Spanish very strongly for many years. And he said, from now on, I want you to work only with our Spanish clients, and I want you to, speak to them in Spanish, help them out. And at first I was like, no. My Spanish is akin to street Spanish or something. There's no way I can talk business on the phone to my Spanish-speaking countries and such and clients. And what I really appreciated is that he allowed me to see that I could grow further in this area by pushing myself beyond my comfort zone. And I think that's what you're talking about when you say a good leader not only creates a safe space, but allows you to push past your comfort zone a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, pushing past your comfort zone and, the idea of whether it's spoken or not spoken, and often good bosses sometimes don't speak it, but it would be great if they spoke it. When we really believe in people passionately and our goal as a leader is to develop the capabilities and the confidence and capacity of our leaders, we tend to hold this bigger space for them to grow into than even they see as possible right now. And, in doing that, we create a sense of additional confidence in our people. So they'll play full out. What that boss did for you in really pushing you out of your comfort zone was they were so confident in your ability and they were holding a bigger space for you. And what you ended up doing was trusting their instinct and trusting your instinct and actually expanding into it successfully.
Yeah, that's great. And where does, as you're growing as a person, as your own leader of maybe a department or business, and then also your team, how do you put forth responsibility? Because that is a part of growth and leadership. How does that impact?
So, it's interesting because in Leadership Rigor, it's written in 3 parts, and there's a whole part dedicated to really leading yourself and understanding at a fundamental level, how do you get yourself to be skilled and productive, whether it's in time management and communication, and then you evolve into a new set of skills and a higher level set of skills as it relates to leading your team and leading others. And, there's a lot of consciousness and dynamics that you have to be mindful of as you start to evolve into leading your team. As you move into getting work done through others, there are some fundamental skills and tools that leaders need to be aware of. So, one of them is how do they appropriately coach and evolve the talent of their team? When someone is new on the team, you direct them. When someone has a little more experience, you ask questions and you coach them. You ultimately evolve into empowering or delegating. But this transfer of confidence and skills in the best team leaders today has conscious discipline associated with it, and they have an understanding of a leadership style or a leadership approach that is very situationally appropriate and specific to the challenge and the individual at that time. And if you do that well, you're really able to grow and develop your team. If you don't do that well, you may end up delaying the growth or forcing yourself or the other person into either micromanagement or a slower growth path.
Wow. I love that you mentioned this. My very first time in management, I was given a crew of 8, and I thought just coming in with a title that people would just follow orders. And it wasn't quite that easy. For one, I was coming from a space where the person who had managed before me was very abusive to the staff. So now I had to come in after them, and they weren't quite sure what they were going to get. Are they going to get someone like they had before, kind of abusive, not listening to them, not giving them that safe space? Or are they going to listen to them, allow them to grow, hear them out? And I remember my first day in there, they asked me to do a big project, and I had to give it to my team, and I kind of just, do you think you could do this, guys? And, of course, they didn't come to the table. They didn't do a good job, and I suffered the consequences. But it was a good reflection to, okay, what do I need to do next time? What didn't work here? Why didn't it work? And what can I do to get the team to trust me? And it took time to build that trust. Talk a little bit about the trust factor in leadership.
The trust factor is probably the most important thing for leaders to develop and learn. And what's interesting about trust is it takes a long time to really develop trust, but it takes 2 seconds to lose it. Right? In the leadership world, I like to ask leaders, I'll say, what are you? Are you a giver of trust or are you an earner of trust? The best leaders today are givers of trust. They will set expectations. They will let people know that they're there to help, to come to me, but I believe in you and I trust you, and I'll give you some space to try to, lean in and grow and stretch and, use me here and let's make some, kind of connections on how we'll manage this together, but I trust you. Others that may be more difficult to establish trust with really want to have you earn it. They want it to be seen over time. They're a little bit more reserved and judgmental about it. A little bit more concerned about how maybe their team or their direct reports are an absolute reflection on them, as opposed to, really seeing their direct reports as independent talents that are growing in and of themselves. So, when you're faced with someone who gives trust, it's really a great opportunity to, trust yourself and try to fulfill the goals and objectives that they're putting out there. When someone's asking you to earn trust, the question I always ask is, how do I know when I earn it? And if I make a mistake, do I lose it and have to earn it all over again? So having conversations around trust and literally using the word trust so people understand, what we're talking about, I think is really important as you build these healthy relationships in the workplace.
Wow. And I've seen both happen. I mean, I've had leaders in the past who micromanage, and I saw later on, reflecting on the situation, that was more about their insecurity with the position than more about me or any of the other coworkers. And I get what you're saying. I'm guessing if anyone's out there and they are dealing with a team and they're having a bit of problems, maybe to start using what you're saying, bring the team together and talk openly and honestly about how do we build trust among ourselves and create that space where we can all grow together.
What I think is a great idea. That's a great suggestion. I also want to link to what you said just a minute ago when you were talking about your own experience and like, hey guys, can you help me with this? One of the most powerful ways to build trust, and trust has a language, right? There's a really specific language around trust. One of the best ways a leader can build trust is to be vulnerable and to be real. Another word that we were using before when you were talking about your colleague who wrote the book, Living Your Truth. Being vulnerable really has, and building trust has language and 4 phrases that I like to share with people that will allow you to accelerate your ability to build trust. The first phrase is, I was wrong, right? Because by admitting that we're wrong, we allow other people to be wrong. I need help. Being really clear about, there's expertise that you may have that I don't have. And, whether you work for me or I work for you, being able to say I need help is a real sign of trying to build trust and show your vulnerability. I apologize. I was wrong. I may have given you too much, or I didn't give you enough space. But whatever I did, being vulnerable enough to be real about it and hopefully build our relationship in a more trustful way moving forward. And the 4th one would be, I was wrong. I need help. I apologize. I made a mistake. One of the things that, many leaders often fail to do is to truthfully acknowledge when they made a mistake. And when we make a mistake and we admit that, people feel like they can trust us more. And therefore, that whole trust-building relationship just builds on itself.
I like that you really went there. That was so important, because one of the things that built that team up and I into a good bond and team together was that early on when I made the mistake of not really owning up to, I'm going to trust you guys and we're going to go forward and make this project happen. I asked for their help, but I didn't really believe they'd help me. And then when it failed, I took responsibility and said, I'm the leader. This didn't work because something I need to change about how I did this. I think that's part of the reason why we were able to come together quicker probably than the last people that worked there, is because we were able to, they were able to see me as a person who was willing to admit when I made a mistake and do something to fix it. So I love that you mentioned that it's so important to be willing to be vulnerable, and vulnerable does not equal weakness. That's 2 separate things. No,
vulnerability in leadership is actually a real strength, and many people struggle with this. In fact, much of the time in my leadership practice, I'll ask people up front, what do they think of the word vulnerability? And, 8.5 or 9 out of 10 times it's something negative, whereas those who are more enlightened and, more further along in their leadership practice and their leadership journey really recognize that vulnerability is a strength. And, the way you showed your vulnerability there, just in the way you expressed it, let's bring it back to different language. You told the truth about yourself and you were transparent. Yeah. Right? Very, very strong leadership skills. And we call that vulnerability in the moment, but it was really you being truthful and transparent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is we could talk for hours about this area. This is so fascinating, but I don't want us to leave without letting the audience know how they can find out more about you, work with you, get your awesome book. Let them know that.
Sure. So Leadership Rigor is on Amazon.com if you're interested in checking that out. My website is Erica, Erica, Peitler, Peitler.com. I'm on Twitter at Erica Peitler, and happy to talk to anyone who wants to learn more about leadership or leadership rigor.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you again. This has been such a wonderful talk for coming to Savvy Business Radio and sharing your gifts of wisdom today. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you, Christina. It was great to be here.
After 5 years of creating exciting business content with amazing businesses from around the world, Savvy is now creating a new video series entitled Heartbeat of the World. This series will feature experts from around the globe. We will highlight and discuss some of the greatest challenges facing the U.S. and the world. Co-create with us and find out more at bit.ly/savvypatron.